Whether you love him or hate him, Mike Tyson is certainly one of the biggest names in sports today. Codemasters is currently preparing and nearing completion of the next Mike Tyson game for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. We've gotten our hands on builds for both versions of Mike Tyson's boxing, and currently it's 80%, and there's really very little difference between the two versions. The game is almost a hybrid of a boxing and fighting game in the sense that it doesn't try to simulate the sport of boxing in terms of the defense and all of the techniques that's used, but rather it adds a bunch of fighting game elements to it, like special button combinations that allow you to do really big explosive combos. You can hold the button down to charge punches up and let them go at the right time to maximize your punching power. So there's lots of elements to it that don't really make it a boxing game per se or a fighting game either way. It's kind of like right down the middle. It's something that's going to appeal to boxing fans, casual boxing fans, as well as good old-fashioned fighting game fans. The control of Mike Tyson's boxing, even in its current state, is pretty solid. Although the control scheme, the way it's set up, is rather I shouldn't say difficult, but it's kind of weird. You've got the left analog stick that moves your guy around the ring. You have the right analog stick, which raises and lowers your guard. So depending on how high you raise, you see your fighter bring up his arms or put him down. The buttons on the face of the controller are your regular punches. You have a jab, a right, hook to the body, the regular stuff that you would see. Then there's modifiers, and basically the modifiers allow it so that you can throw different punches or do special punches or illegal punches such as elbows or low blows. Too many of those, you'll get kicked out of the ring. But for the most part, the game does move pretty good and control pretty well. The majority of the gameplay, the time spent in the ring, is basically spent either slipping your opponent's punches or throwing your own. Using the trigger buttons on the back of the controller, and you'll see your fighter kind of weave to one side or the other to evade punches. You can also use the block in there, but it's kind of difficult because you have to take your hands off the punch buttons in order to get to the block. So it's better just to kind of slip out of the way. And when you slip out of the way, basically what you want to do is once your opponent swings and you slip out of the way, you want to immediately try to counter his attack with your own, and hopefully you'll catch him and do some damage. The other trick to throwing punches in Mike Tyson's boxing is simply the length of time you spend on the buttons for the punches. So for example, if you hold a button down for the right amount of time, you'll see basically a trail of little red or blue lines behind your fighter's arm, and that indicates that you held the button at the correct, for the correct amount of time, which means that you maximize that punch for its power. If you hold it too long, then it'll just dissipate and it won't do anything. If you don't hold it long enough, you'll see he'll throw a punch, but it just won't be quite as effective. The game contains, of course, 16 real-world fighters. Some well-known, some not quite so well-known. You've got Mike Tyson, of course, David Tua, Michael Grant, lots of guys in there, Larry Holmes. So there's lots of faces from the current heavyweight division, and they're all heavyweights, of course. Plus you have some venues from around the world as well. In the audio department, they've got Bobby Ches from Showtime Championship Boxing, who does Bobby Ches is awesome. He's got one of the coolest announcing techniques in boxing, so it's definitely cool to hear him in the game. Although he's accompanied by someone that's a famous announcer from the UK who does boxing, I believe for Sky Television, but he's got an English accent, and it's kind of weird to hear the mix of Bobby Ches and this other guy. But they did it kind of good, and it's cool to have Bobby Ches in there. The sound effects in the game, typical arcade boxing, sound effects, nothing real big there. They have taunts in the game. You'll hear the fighters say stuff like, I'm your worst nightmare. It's not actually the fighters' voices. They got stand-ins for that stuff. The Mike Tyson voice sounds okay. One of the biggest parts of Mike Tyson's heavyweight boxing is the reward system. Basically, and this also ties into a fighting game. Fighting games are well known for having lots of unlockable secrets and stuff. This is also true for Mike Tyson's heavyweight boxing. You have tons of stuff to unlock. Basically, when you first start playing the game, you can't get through a bout without unlocking something. And basically the way it's set up is there's your career mode of sorts that has a bronze, silver, and gold class. And the way that works is, basically there's a certain level of fighters you have to beat on the bronze to get to the silver, and etc. Going through, you don't even have to beat the whole division. Basically, the first guy you beat, depending on what you do in the fight, you'll unlock certain things that you can unlock simply, extra fighters, because when you start out, it doesn't have all the guys unlocked. So you get fighters, you get everything from shorts to tattoos to extra combos, signature punches. There's tons of stuff to unlock in the game. So while Mike Tyson boxing certainly looks like it's shaping up to be a solid game, we'll have to wait before we see a final build until we comment further. Although it is fair to say that the game definitely is on track, and it should be something neat for boxing and fighting game fans to check out, and we'll have to wait and see how it turns out.